Okay, the last time we met in class, we talked about the Babylonian numeration system. We said that in the Babylonian numeration system, there were only two figures that basically gave them all their numbers. There was the triangle that pointed down, which is 1, and the other thing we're calling the boomerang is the 10. So we're going to call them triangles and boomerangs. And then we represented these Babylonian numbers as Hindu-Arabic numbers or Indo-Arabic numbers. That is our number system, by the way. And so reading from right to left, we look at the triangles and then we go to the boomerangs. And notice it starts with the triangles again. So we'll stop after the first boomerang. And so that is our 1 spot. So that represents the number 11, and it's in our 1 spot, so it really does just represent 11. And then you go over to the next spot. That is the 60 spot because they based their system on powers of 60. So since that is the 60 spot, that number represents 10, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's in our 60 spot, so we multiply it by 60, and that gives us 1,440. So this number is actually 1,451. And then we did a similar thing with this example as well. Now, later, they decided to do the two little triangles on top of each other to indicate that there is nothing that's a placeholder. There's nothing in that spot. So we're going to go from right to left again, and we're going to start with these 3. That represents the 1's place. And so in the 1's place, those 3 triangles represent 3. So it's 3 times 1. And then this next spot, that is our 60's place. That is a placeholder. Notice there is nothing in the 60 spot, so that's like kind of like our 0 equivalent to. And then we're going to go over to the next spot. This is our 60 squared. I told you it was a little freaky because that is 60 raised to the 2nd power. They're based on powers of 60. So 60 to the 0 is the 1, 60 to the 1 is 60, 60 squared is actually 3,600. So that number is 2, but actually, sorry, that number is 3, but it's in the 60 squared spot, so it's times 3,600. So I'm going to add those two pieces together. I've got 3 times 3,600 plus 3, which is 10,800 plus 3, which is 10,803. And that's my answer. We're going to go backwards now and take we're going to take the Hindu-Arabic numbers and turn them into Babylonian numbers. So let's start with the number 38. The number 38 is less than 60. So since 38 is less than 60, it's just in the 1's. So all we have to do is represent the number 38. It's easy enough. 38 is going to be represented by 3 boomerangs for the 30, and then 8 little triangles for the triangle. They're for the 1's. So the 8. And there it is. There's 38. So easy enough. Now it gets a little bit more complicated when you go up to 3,625. You're going to go divide by powers of 60. So I'm going to take 3,625 and I'm going to divide by powers of 60 to see how many of each one goes in there. I'm going to divide by the largest power of 60 first. So 60 to the 0 power is 1. There's our 1's. 60 to the 1 power is 60. There's your 60's. 60 to the 2nd power, that's 3,600. We're not going to go beyond that. So 60 to the 3rd power is just way too big for us to worry about. So we're going to take that 3,000, that 600, and that 25, and we're going to start by dividing by the largest power of 60 it'll divide into it, and that's 3,600. It'll go in there one time. We're left with a remainder of 25, and that's our one spot. So that's less than 60, so it's in our one spot. $60 won't go in there. So when I go to represent the number, I have 3,600. And then I'm going to have a placeholder for my 60s because there's nothing in my 60 spot. And then I'm going to represent the number 25. And I do that with 2 boomerangs and the 5 triangles. And that's the number represented in the Babylonian number system. Let's try one more. Instead of 8,000, let's try 972, just to pick a random one. So again, we're going to divide by powers of 60. Remember our powers of 60. 60 to the 0 power was 1. 60 to the first power was 60. 60 to the second power was 3,600. Well, 3,600 is too big, so we're going to divide by 60. So we're going to take 60 into 972. Go in there one time, and then we have 372. So 60 will go into 372 5 times. Actually, it goes in there 6 times. I stand corrected. 6 times. And so that'll give me 6 times 60 is 360. And so that leaves me with a remainder of 12. So I'm going to represent my 60s first. And the number I'm going to represent in my 60 spot is the number 16. And the way I represent 16 is with a boomerang and 6 triangles. And then I'm going to represent the remainder, 12, because that's going to be my ones because it's less than 60. So for my ones, I've got 12. And again, the way I'm going to represent that, the boomerang for 10 and the 2 triangles. And I've represented 972 in the Babylonian numeration system. So back to the question on the previous page, the Babylonian numeration system is place value is based on powers of 60. The Hindu-Arabic, also called the Indo-Arabic number systems, place value, that's our system by the way, is based on powers of what number? Of course, our system is based on powers of 10. The next numeration system we're going to look at is called the Mayan numeration system. It was heavily influenced by their solar calendar, where 360 days of their calendar was divided into 18 months, each with 20 days. So they had 3 different figures that they used, and they used that to make all their numbers. They had 0, and then they had the dot to represent 1, and then they had the little line to represent 5. So here are all the numbers from 0 to 19. Notice you use dots until you get to 5, and then you use a line. And then to represent 6, it's a dot and a line, and so on and so forth. 10 is 2 lines. 19 is 3 lines for 5, 10, 15, and then 4 dots at the top to make the number 19. So those are all of the numbers that are represented. And then they had, in addition to that system, where you just added those values together, the additive system, they had the multiplicative system, where you multiplied them by their place value. And their positional system, because it's important where they're placed. For example, if you had a line above a dot, then this would represent the 1 spot, and then above that, that would actually represent the 20s spot. So it's important where they're positioned. So a number like this would actually be 1 plus 5 times 20, which is 100. So that would actually represent 101. Whereas if it's written like this, it's 6. Okay. So the position of this is important. They also had a symbol for 0. Notice that 0 in this system was used as a placeholder as well. So these are the place values for the MAT enumeration system. And again, on a test, I might expect you to be able to do this, but I would not expect you to know the place values for the MAT enumeration system. I would give those to you if I asked a question about this on an exam. From bottom to top is how they place their numbers. Bottom would be the lowest numbers. So that would be your 1s on the bottom. And then you would work your way up to the top. Okay? And then from this you would go, the bottom would be the 1s, because 20 to the power 1, 0 power is 1. Then they're the 20 spot. And this is really kind of weird. They go 18 times 20, which is 360. That's how many days they would consider to be in a year. And then they go, instead of saying 20 cubed, it's 18 times 20 squared, which is 7,200. And so it was a little different than the Babylonian system, and that the way they made their place values was not the same. They just based it on powers of 20. It was kind of based on powers of 20. So let's look at some examples. We're going to write each of these in the Hindu-Arabic numeral as a Hindu-Arabic numeral. So I'm going to start with the bottom because that's my 1s place. So I have 1, 2, 3 lines, and then I have 2 dots. That is the number 5, 10, 15, 16, 17. And that is in the 1s place, the 20 to the 0 power. So that's 17 times 1, so that is the number 17. Then if I look above it, again, the spacing is a little kooky. If you look at the spacing kind of wrong, you can get the answer wrong, so just be careful when you're doing your homework. So if you look at the one above it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. That represents the number 4, but it is not in the 1 spot, it is in the 20 spot. So I'm going to multiply it by 20. So that actually represents the number 80. And then if I go up 1 spot above that, this represents 5, 10, 11, 12, 13. That is in my 20 times 18 spot. We'll call it the 360 spot. We'll have to look back here to see that that's the next one. Okay, so we'll call that 13 times 360. And then that number, let me calculate that. I'm going to cheat and put that on my calculator here. 13 times 360 is equal to 4,680. Now I'm going to add all of those up. And that gives me 4,777. That's what that number represents in the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, 4,777. So our next example, I'm going to continue in the next recording, so I only get 15 minutes for each of these. So we're going to stop this, look for the next recording. There's going to be 2 or 3.